everybody. Here we go. I'm going to be talking about the Neville Goddard revision technique. Those who don't know Neville Goddard, most people around me know because I talk ad nauseum about Neville Goddard. But I like the way he thinks and how he compares like stuff that's in traditional religions, Judaism, Christianity, Hinduism, and he brings it into, how it works, and he makes it simple. And yeah, Michelle, can you make sure everybody's muted? Thank you. So anyway, so it's kind of cool, and if and I'm fascinated with it. And now what we know about the neurology, we have ways of knowing, why this stuff is working in your head and how it ties into NLP. A lot of his stuff, when I first got exposed to it, I was really already into the NLP and some of the metaphysical kind of thinking when I got exposed to it. And the guy that really turned me on to it was, people were talking about him earlier, was Charlie Curtis. And so I've been following it, but it's a lot of his stuff that he talks about is a classic NLP technique without using what we would call an NLP technique. One of his most famous techniques is see yourself from the end. And it's basically the way he does a future pacing. It's just brilliant. So today, I thought we'd talk about his revision technique, and we'll use some neuroscience and NLP to get that, to break it down, right? But as always, today, let's have some fun. Let's share. Let's be open. I need it because that get my nerves down for this audition I have. And I'm going through a mental flip because I just directed a play, did a play. Now I got to do a film audition. It's a different skill set. So I think a friend of mine jumped on the call, Tom, who's done both stage and film. But anyway, so today, have fun, share. And after I'm done with the recording, I'll open it up. We can share. I'll turn off the recording. So if you want to share, it doesn't go on onto the video. Because if you say something inappropriate, it will go on the video. And unless I can talk my friend Rocky Top Dave into editing it, it will go up. And God knows I never say anything politically incorrect. So anyway, and just be open to everything. What can you learn today? If you're not into it, if you know a lot, what can you learn differently? And what are you going to try? Please do not just take the information and never try it, or think, that won't work for me, right? One of my favorite saying is, contempt prior to investigation will leave one in eternal ignorance. I think it's so anyway, so Neville's core insight is that imagination creates reality. And in one of his talks, it was brilliant if you're into that, he broke down how when you're using, as he called it, purposeful prayer, praying with a purpose, you're actually using your imagination. It's just, kind of revised a little bit. So if imagination creates reality, his other core insight was you can, as we know in NLP, hypnosis and that, is you can revise a past event in your mind. Right? You can rewrite it, you can change it. A lot of NLP techniques, hypnosis techniques that do that, right? Because we know that each time you think of a memory, you change it. You can make it worse, you can make it less, whatever it is, right? It's why I generally, sometimes, I'm trying to think of how to word it. I mostly disagree with the traditional regression guys that go into, you just got to find the initial sensitizing event. First of all, that's not how your brain works. Because if that's as true, is the event as bad as you make it out in your memory, or did you keep rewriting it to make it worse? Right? Have you ever had the experience you had this memory about someone and you had a negative feeling, especially from your childhood, and then as an adult you find out information you didn't have? This person that you thought was just a mean, vindictive dick, you found out, his wife at the time was, fighting terminal cancer. I mean, you find out this backstory and you rewrite all your memories like that. It changes your perspective, right? And I was just working with someone about, trying to revise some of these things in your head. Especially what if you were raised with someone with, you're not good enough, you'll never be good enough, you do the best you can. Well, that's still not enough. You're ugly, you're stupid, you're fat, or whatever. So you get these events in your mind as a kid that become memories, that become emotion, that become your belief system, which can become part of your personality, right? And it can change the emotional meaning that you carry when you rewrite an event, right? And Neville Goddard taught this in the 1940s, and from what I found, it was from the Pruning Shears of Revision, one of his talks that he gave. I think it was in Los Angeles, right? The Pruning Shears of Revision. And basically, it's very simple, and I've heard the hypnotists talk about it. And he probably didn't invent this, he just kind of codified it, which is rewrite the day before you go to sleep. When you're laying in bed, and I can relate this to another part of my life, which is the recovery movement, the 12-step world, which talks about taking inventory at the end of the day. What did you do good? What did you do? What could you have done better? Da, 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 da. But what if you think about those memories where it didn't go quite the way you wanted? What if you rewrite them so it went better? Right? And you do this more than once by, it's not just a one session magic, but you may have to do it several times for the new version to really feel real and become who you are, right? And again, it's because memories are not fixed recordings. The research now knows that every time you think of a memory, you rewrite it, right? And when you recall a memory, they become editable, not edible, editable, right? In fact, there's an NLP technique, I haven't heard it for a while, called tape edit, right? Tape edit, where you as soon as I used to teach this a lot in my trainer's training, where right after you do a presentation to the class, which is the toughest group you'll ever present to, I'd sit, if this ever happened to you, you're at a conference, you're doing anything. And as soon as you're done, you think, damn it, I should have done this, this, and this. Or I didn't do that, right? What if you sit down and close your eyes and rewrite the memory? So you imagine doing that training, that talk, but you remembered to put in the joke that you wanted or the story. You just rewrite. Your brain doesn't know. And since it's fresh, it hasn't been encoded into the deeper parts of your brain. And as you're thinking about it, you're rewriting it, right? And then that night, if you do it during the day as things are going on, that night, your brain rewrites the memories in the process called memory reconsolidation. It moves it to the deeper parts of your brain. I know this is very like, I worked with a director, in film, and that he'd have you rehearse and then say, now close your eyes and just imagine, it sounds like a dick move, but imagine doing it right. But it wasn't, it's like, okay, like you remembered the timing, the beats, the movements, or whatever you had to do. So somehow he knew enough to rewrite on the fly, which is very powerful, right? So I just, it's a really cool technique. Okay, here we go. I'm sorry, my computer just glitched on me. All right, so your brain on revision, right? The amygdala, the deeper part of your brain, gives you the emotional charge, right? With no emotion, you don't remember anything. The memories you have that last the longest have some kind of emotional charge. Could be positive, could be negative, but there's some kind of emotional charge. And if there's no deep emotional charge, the memory subsides, right? Uh, you know, 3/4 of the stuff you learned in high school or college, you don't remember. You know, there was no, but you probably remembered, you know, the dances or the parties or the things that you did. They had an emotional response. You know, the performances if you're into that, right? And the prefrontal cortex gives it new meaning. And when they balance in your hippocampus, it adds context and story to the memory. Right? It's also why I always think that, like, if you have a sibling and you guys start discussing something from your childhood, there's two different stories. Right? You know, as Gabor Mate says, when he works with people, somebody says, I don't understand why I'm, you know, different than my siblings. We were raised by the same parents. And he makes the statement, no, you weren't. Your parents were different each time you interacted with them. And we all know this, the firstborn is treated differently in different ways as the depending on how many siblings, right? And it's like, and there's no judgment. It's just that no one's the same. Plus, you weren't in the same emotional state, right? So here's how NLP calls it re-imprinting. You disassociate from the event, so you pull out of you're not in the movie, you pull out from the movie, um, uh, change the background, make changes, images, sounds, and meaning, right? In the NLP technique of reparenting, you go back and step out of the memory, watch it like the interaction with your parent when they're saying you'll never amount to anything, right? And you rewrite the memory with them saying not so much you'll never amount to anything, but saying you'll do much better if you study harder or if you do more. What was their intention? So you could, and you don't really know, but you could rewrite it to give you a more empowering response. Right? Sometimes I teach this, people want to argue about things, but I don't care. Does it serve you or not? If it doesn't serve you, it changes the response. Right? And again, it works because your brain responds to vividly imagined experiences. Right? If I had that, I should have put it up, saved the clip and showed everybody. It's a really vivid, almost three-dimensional experience of being on a roller coaster. If you turn the sound up, you hear all the sound, it gives you the whole. I think it said 80% of the people will have a strong visceral response. Okay? If you like roller coasters, it excites you. If you're scared of roller coasters, it scares the shit out of you. Well, the emotional response, fear and anticipation, it all has to do with dopamine and the neurochemicals going on in your brain, right? So you're going to respond to vividly imagined experiences, right? And if you add repetition, it can begin to rewrite neural pathways, right? And then, as I talked about the last few weeks, you add a new self-talk that helps create, or I should have put create or reinforce a new identity. That's not who I am anymore. I'm not being afraid of heights. That's not who I am anymore. Whatever it happens to be. So the 5-step revision process is recall the event, and it's easy to do when you're going to sleep. As long as you make an effort to do it before you get too sleepy, or you'll pass out in the middle of the process, right? Is recall the event. I had an interaction with somebody at the gas station. I didn't like how it went. I didn't like who I was. I just had to do this a few days ago. So disassociate from it and replay it like, in that case, it was like, instead of getting angry and kind of pissy about everything, it's just like, just letting it go and saying to that person, well, I hope you have a great day, instead of questioning their parentage, which I have a tendency to do, right? So it was like, so I had to do it a couple times. And then the positive emotion was drain away the anger and put in that, a positive emotion and a little bit of the sub story of, I don't know what that person was going through. I have no idea, right? And I had to do it 3 or 4 times, and it removed the emotional charge, right? And it's the self-talk that locks it in. The last few talks have been on personality and beliefs, and a lot of it has to do with self-talk, right? That old story's over, Again, in the 12-step world, you hear people, they're not in our world, they're not therapists, hypnotists, psychologists, but you'll hear them say I respond differently now, right? That old story's over. My favorite, that's not who I am. To me, that's one of the most powerful, because it's not denying that's who I used to be. That's not who I am anymore. That story's over. I respond differently now. And so real world uses is money blocks. If you have money blocks, relationship wounds, right? Fear of rejection. Fear of rejection. And note to anybody, if you don't like rejection, you probably shouldn't try to be an actor. If you get rejected 99% of the time. The other big one is performance anxiety. If you have some performance anxiety, someone will remain nameless, but I remember them being at a conference one time and ready to not do the training, not do their talk. It's like, no, I can't do it. I can't handle it. There's all these people here. They're going to judge me. Yeah, they're probably going to judge you. But most people want others to do well I'm there to learn something, right? I don't remember what all was said, but it was like, that's performance anxiety, right? You have to rewrite it so you could do a different job, better job, the job that you want. And the bottom line to me is you're not stuck with your past. You can change the meaning and change the identity. Right? Because that seems to be why we are drawn to people that have the biggest transformation. And if you change the identity, you change your life. In the 12-step analogy, you look at your past, you take responsibility for it, you clean it up, then you become a different person, right? And it takes away the charge of the past. Because if you're thinking about the past or present or planning the future, you're not in the moment. So just have some fun with that. And so tonight's assignment, if you choose to accept it, is to try to revise an event before you go to sleep. And see it in the way you want it, not the way that it really happened. And feel the relief and certainty. That's eventually, I think that'll be a talk soon. Is, Neville Goddard talked about adding certainty to it. So have some fun with that. And wherever you're watching this, click like and subscribe and all the other social media things, I should say, and go to hortonpsychology.com. So you train like a performer to be an elite public speaker. That's coming up soon. Again, if you like this kind of stuff, the thing to avoid is boring people with facts. The things to do is tell a story and excess emotion. That influences people. Wherever you're watching this, make sure you subscribe and please leave a comment and tell everyone around it. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. That's hortonpsychology.com.